Thanks, John. Steve Seelig, I wanted to again compliment you for continuing to work with the community in coming up with, I think, is as good and as workable a solution as you have. There's still some tweaks. I'm very sympathetic to the lady on Ellicott Street. I have a young son, and I'll ask you a couple of questions about directions you didn't take for 42nd Street. But I wanted again emphasize that this is the right location for having density. The success of this park and adding vibrancy to the neighborhood, of this area not becoming a wind tunnel, as the WAG lady said, is purely dependent on how many people are going to be able to have access to it. The less density, if you insist on there being less density, if that's what the zoning commission decides is correct, it will not be successful. The retail will not be successful. I, for one, am disappointed that you gave in on that one floor. I understand, though, how you were being responsive to the community. And if not a place that's within a quarter mile of a metro to be adding density in our area, I'm not sure where else we would do so. One other thing I wanted to mention about the comprehensive plan. It's beautiful. It's like the Bible, okay? You can interpret the comprehensive plan however you want. And what you read earlier with the emphasis on low to mid-rise over towers, you know, it's in the eye of the beholder as to what is high-rise and what is mid-rise.
It's defined.
It's defined?
Yes,
Well,
it's defined.
It's defined.
and we'll let the zoning commission determine that.
Thank you.
But I did want to ask a question about the egress.
It's defined.
Pardon me.
I wasn't talking to you.
Excuse me. So, Phil, you showed the street here, and I was curious as to, we talked before about creating a street that didn't create a clear demarcation between pedestrians and cars. The curbs are still there, the pavement is still there. It's still pretty clear that if you're a car, you're given most favored nation status. Has there been any thought to, and I think this will help address this lady's concern about having access to that place for pedestrians, for children. I didn't see a bike lane there either, so I'm just curious about that. And the other question I have is, what kind of access are people going to have to the campus who might not be using cars on 43rd Street? Can you answer those two questions?
Better be zero. The answer to your second question was already provided by Adam.
And how come?
I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
I mean, why wouldn't there be a fence? Why wouldn't there be?
Wait. Adam,
Talking
my
to you.
understanding is, just to, because this is really blowing all hell into a mountain. My understanding is GDS doesn't feel like it needs it. Is that correct? So that's that answer. Now, on the other question, is that
The other question is that we're still in conversation.
I'm dropping them off.
Can you take it outside?
You guys, yeah.
The question about
I asked Phil.
Yeah, the question about the paving on 42nd is that we're still discussing with DDOT what options we have for special paving. I would like to have the textured paving in there. And one of the reasons we widen this curb, our office is doing the Hind project down by Eastern Market, and this dimension seems to be a better one for putting 2 tents and a farmer's market on a weekend. We thought the actual introduction of some convenience parking along there for the retail would be a good one because it provides a certain kind of friction. Where if you don't have anybody on either side, then cars think, oh, I'm on a highway. The other thing is that I think that's probably most of it. So they're still working on that. I would like to do that, but
Claire, go ahead.
there are other issues with DDOT that we have to.
I don't want to talk about 43rd Street and start a fight, but I do want to say that DDOT is looking at pedestrian access also from River. That they too, like us, are interested in porosity and really being able to make the site, the school, accessible and not
So not
walled
in
off.
addition to 43rd.
Not in addition
Not
to
in addition
43rd,
to 43rd Street.
but they seem to have.
In addition to Davenport,
Yeah.
Okay.
to be clear.
So, I'm going to have a bunch of other folks, let's see. And I'm going to stand up just so the people in the back of the room. So you, sir, at the back of the room, and then the person in front of you. And then, who else has their hand up? And then we'll get you and you. Okay, so.
Could we please ask people to state their names and also where they live, so that we know that the
Yeah.
comments are coming.
That's
from
fine, state your name, where you live, and, so, all the way at the back. Where the person.
So, I'm Bill, I live on Elgin Street across from the Village Middle School. And two quick questions. Well, the first was a statement, so I just want everyone to keep in mind when we're talking about the heights that, you know, this is the beginning of potentially a string of developments as time goes on. And so everyone keeps quoting the existing Tenley Hill height from the most significant point, right? That's what I've never heard actually GDS mention the lower points in the back. It's always, you know, this high corner. So as we move down, whatever the highest corner is on the two new towers, that's what the next development will say. We're no bigger. Look, we're lower than GDS's buildings. You know, we're lower than this development. So just keep in mind that that's what people are going to use. The worst case is what people are going to use moving forward. They're going to compare that because it's already happening here with Tenley Hill. The second one's a question.
And speak up, please, just so we can hear it.
Sure. And Russell, this is for you.
I'm listening.
I haven't heard much about how to handle visitation. So, for example, if there's a sports game and Aunt Jane comes, or you know, the people that are coming to visit the people, maybe overnight guests, people that live in this place. So, is there a plan for how these people will feel they will naturally be drawn into the correct parking locations and not park nearby and walk over? You know, is it going to be free? Is it going to be inviting? Is it going to be easy? Is it going to be complicated? That's just something maybe you can answer.
Sure. So what's important to know is that the part of our campus that would draw the most traffic for things like games, dances, etc., is already there, which is the high school. We already have every day after school visiting teams coming in, playing the school. The students come in on buses. If the parents are coming in to watch the game, they come and they park in the school lot because other people who have parked in the school lot have left for the day. And again, the high school is the high school. It's already there, and we believe that that'll be effective moving forward in managing that traffic. In terms of the retail residential building, I am happy to invite either, do you guys want to talk about parking in the retail residential building, or Britt, do you want to talk? Britt?
Either way, I mean,
Great.
we've taken a look at the parking. There's a garage underneath the residential retail building as well, and it's designed to meet zoning standards for the number of residential units that are above it, and the retail. So, I mean, there will be lots of signage required in order to make, and that works for any of our developments that we do, making sure that the people are going to the right place.
So that would be open parking, not, it wouldn't be reserved parking, it would be open parking.
There would be retail spaces, primarily, and usually the way we do it is you separate the garage for retail spaces that people would pay a rate to go in, patronize the retail, and then the separate for the garage for the residential.
But then for the visitors for the residential, they would park in the retail?
Well, I think the idea, and again, these rules that were laid out, I mean, I think are to have no visitor passes. And that's part of the
There will
lease.
be visitors, you know, coming to this. So if you say no visitor passes, they're going to need to park somewhere. Whether or not there's a visitor pass, it might they can park wherever they want.
I think
So, I mean, I'm just, from experience in places like Clarendon and places like Philly, a lot of this, I find myself circling around and parking in somebody's, you know, right in front of some poor person's house. And so they've gone to the extreme of many, many restricted signs everywhere. Where you can, you can't. You just go deeper and deeper until you find one. So I'm just curious how you're going to resolve that so you don't have people going deeper and deeper as the signs come up in this neighborhood to try to find a place to park.
And there's definitely additional capacity in the garage, but, and you know, I think it's a matter of how this evolves and whether there are the visitor passes or not. But it's a fair point. It's a very fair point.
There won't be, will there be?
Okay, wait, let's try and take this in order. So are you finished?
Yeah.
So, okay, so there's a fellow, you, sir with the beard, you were next, I think?
Yeah. I'm Gary Glasky. I live near AU on the Tenley daily basis. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I think the overall density of the site is not being increased. It's being moved to Wisconsin Avenue. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can respond to that.
So they're not, is
Yes.
that correct? So it seems to me that's the appropriate place for it. You could have another plan, hypothetically, where there's more height and closer to the existing houses, And so this plan moves it away from the houses to Wisconsin Avenue. I think that's the right place for it. I'm also not an expert on the comp plan, but my understanding is that that is not a rigid law. It is a guideline, and the purpose of the PUD process is there a good reason for doing something differently? And you have a process that has public input for the zoning commission to determine if there's a reason for doing something differently. They don't have to, but they're not prohibited from doing that. So it's a question of making the case as to what is the right thing to do. So you could have an option here, and particularly if GDS decided this was just too hard and they move somewhere else, where you'd have density more than, not 90 feet, but you'd have more density closer.
No, you wouldn't do that.
Well,
we did ask the question why, and did you hear an answer? Why?
Listen, can we?
Did you hear that?
Hey!
Talking stick, one person talking at a time.
Okay, sorry, just trying to be fair, okay? So, I take it that you've made your point?
Yes.
Okay,